Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm streaming a little later this morning than I was yesterday because I had to actually brave the world to buy food and things. Now we're all stocked up for like 10 days or so. So we should be good. And today I am going to be continuing painting our Pearl Mermaid that we started yesterday. We kind of got her face mostly done. It's a base color, some part of her body, but the rest of her body needs color added and maybe some detail to the background, and her hair needs a little more detail in places. So I'm going to be working on all of that, and then if we do that pretty quick, I have another project that I can show a little bit of as well that is related to mer creatures, but is not a humanoid mer creature. So we will see how that goes. So the first thing I want to do is get the rest of the base color, I think, kind of on her tail here, just so we have that all set to work with. And I have been streaming a little over 2 weeks on Twitch. I am an artist out of Tucson, Arizona. My name is Jessica Feinberg, and I write and illustrate field guides to extraordinary creatures, and I make coloring books and all assorted other kinds of goodies. And I try to work around when I think some of the other locals are streaming, so I'm not hitting all my favorite DJs because I like to tune into their streams and things like that. So try to be aware of that. So what I'm working on is a drawing that I had previously done in ink. And this actually already appears in one of my coloring books and in one of my field guides, but I just did some kind of quick digital color and mostly showed it as an ink drawing. And I really wanted to paint it because I had the original ink drawing sitting here waiting kind of for color for a while. Hi, Dragon Soul. Thank you about the Kickstarter. Yeah, I just funded another coloring Kickstarter for a coloring book and a bunch of other stuff. And I really wanted to do stretch goals for these small kind of pocket-sized coloring books. They're just 5x7 shorter coloring books that have some new art, and they're going to have selected sort of things. So the coloring books that I have are a mix of a lot of different creatures, and these pocket ones will be things like just mermaids or just cats, things like that. So I was worried that we weren't going to be able to fund any of those because honestly, the way the world is right now, I'm surprised I was able to fund a Kickstarter at all because everybody is pretty anxious as far as money and jobs and things go. But my publisher is doing a whole bunch of discounts to help them get business, which means I can publish the books at a much lower cost than I thought it was going to be. So now I can, there's not really a setup fee or some of those things that they normally have. So I can do a bunch of different options. So I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, I don't know if you saw, you're talking about the creator sets. We actually have two that are unlocked, and I did get the second one up there. And I might eventually do a whole creator book. The issue is I can't kind of sell it with on-demand printing because I have to do the stickers for it. So that's not as cool. I guess you could just finish drawing it. But yeah, we had a Clockwork Creator set that was, actually, I think I can visually show these. There was dragons and, let's see, I think I have it here. There we go. These are the Clockwork Creator sets. And we had one that was just the two dragons, and then I just added one yesterday that is owls and a cat. So they come with stickers, and you can kind of customize them however you want, and stickers and the artwork can all be colored, so it's a really kind of a fun way to do a more unique sort of customizable coloring book page. So I'm pretty excited about those. It's because I can do awesome die cut sticker things now. And I'm putting a lot of kind of variation in colors on her tail. I want some like blues and greens, and we might even bring in a little bit of purple to kind of the fins in a few places, just because her hair has so much. I feel like there should be at least a little in here, maybe even just reflected or on her scales. So I'm just going to add a little bit more purple back into parts of this. And I mentioned this yesterday. I'm not being it's just we just finished funding the Kickstarter that is for the coloring book and then for all the like accessory sets. So after we get those printed, I will have extra stuff available on my website. Because I have a lot of my past coloring books up there, but the ones where you can customize the sets is something totally new we're trying out with this project to kind of see how people like it. So we just wrapped the Kickstarter this morning, though. I'm going to put pre-orders up for anybody who missed that, because we have about a 2-week window while Kickstarter quote processes the funds. It basically is how they make their money. They get to hang on. They take a small cut, but they also get to hang on to your funds for 2 weeks after the project, and they get all the interest on that. So it's partly how they keep their business going. So during that time, I can actually take pre-orders. So that's something I have to set up today is all the project surveys and pre-orders and things, so that people will be able to tell me where their books should be shipped and which of the coloring books they want, because I now have 5 different ones, which is ridiculous. And if we do the little ones that I'm planning, I'll have a bunch of small ones too. My idea for those is to do them probably for around $7, but then have sets of them where they're only 5 or 6. Oh, that's awesome that you like some. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize to do the coloring stuff. They kind of see this stuff and they don't realize that I make copies for the coloring books and all that stuff first. And a lot of people have been asking about them because everybody's stuck at home. So what I'm going to try to do is get the digital versions out really fast. Part of it is if you back to the Kickstarter or if you pre-order, you're going to get the digital copy for free so that you can almost immediately print some pages out, especially if you've got like kids who are just really bored right now. I'm trying to get that out really fast to all of the folks who supported the project. So yeah, I start out with all these sort of base colors that I do, and then I actually try to create, like, I don't know, maybe I should probably zoom this in a little. I was trying to show the whole thing, but so I try to create these textures and patterns that happen here. And they're not really planned out. They have to kind of be happy accidents a little bit, but they happen when you're kind of layering your colors. So if I do some of the light blue and let it start to dry, and then I can only describe it as tapping or scribbling with the brush. Well, that's awesome that I have folks who are still interested. Yeah, I try to promote the Kickstarters. They're just a way for us to bulk print stuff, and we just wrapped this one up, but I am going to do pre-order options because we got to wait to print it anyway. And this coloring book's all set to print, as are all the. Basically, I just have to order all the paper and the sticker paper to do the customizable ones. I try to make things that I would have wanted as a kid. I think they're really fun. And the weather's been really nice. It's starting to get a little warmer, so I'm planning more foods I can make ahead or things that'll be good when it's hotter out. So after I do this, I have Kickstarter set up stuff to do, and the mini coloring books are mostly going to have art from the bigger ones, like I said, in collections, like all the clockwork art and things like that. But I am also planning a few new pieces just for the mini ones. And I think they'll be great gifts, and I'm going to offer them kind of as sets, kind of discounted too. So I think they're cool because they're a way to have something a little smaller that you can put in a backpack or a purse or take somewhere. I think for kids especially, they'll be fun. So one of them is going to just be all mythic cats. I have all assorted cats with wings and things like that that I already have as coloring book pages. And I'm going to be doing a couple more for that, and I think one of them is going to be a Mercat. I just did a quick little doodle sketch of it to kind of use for that, so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully everybody's kind of hanging in there. We actually are doing fairly well here in Arizona. We actually canceled a big part of our ventilator order for our hospitals because we're not using that many and we don't need as many. And they're in so short supply for ventilators and respirators and things that they said, you know what, we don't need them. So that means we've slowed things a lot, which is awesome. But it also means this is like might go on a lot longer, which is not so awesome because I know a lot of people are going stir crazy. I'm only going a little stir crazy. I tend to be at home a lot, and I live in an area where I can still easily take walks and give people more than enough social distancing while I do that, so I can get out of the house. But I am kind of used to leaving maybe 2-3 times a week to either go out to eat or go to a movie or run errands. So it's a little weird now. I'm leaving like once every 10 days to buy groceries. That's been an experience. I feel like I've been doing a lot of these kind of rainbowy paintings on Twitch, and I'm not sure why that happens to be the ones that keep coming up, but they're pretty fun. And I mentioned this in the first part of the stream yesterday about this painting. This is a pearl mermaid. So this species is all about farming pearls and doing a lot of stuff related to pearl trading and crafting with pearls. So she's wearing a lot of pearls. And I don't try to leave them white because it would be very difficult to get kind of these smooth colors. So I'm going to be going back in with some white ink and kind of picking some of those areas out. So while this part's already dry that I did, but while this lower part's drying, I'll zoom us back out. There we go. I'm going to be doing just a little bit of a background. I'm not going to do a lot. I'm just going to kind of suggest water back here with just a little bit of a blue-green color. Because I don't want to kind of make it so dark a blue that it takes away from her colors. So just going to do this. And this time of day it's really nice, and then in the afternoon it'll be a little hot. It's usually when I go take a nap since it's warmer where our computers are. There we go. Just a little blue back there. Hearing a lot of random noises outside that's not from our house. Huh, that's weird. Somebody unloading something from a car, or who knows. Fortunately, I planned a lot of work that was going to be kind of stuff I could do sitting. Oh, we're still getting that staticky flickering thing. That's annoying. I wonder if it's the USB port I have my camera plugged into. I'm going to try to change it for the next video. Okay. But I'm just going to see if I can change the port my camera is in now, so I will be right back. Okay, so I just changed which USB port it's plugged into just in case it is something with the port. I don't know. I changed the drivers, I've tried a bunch of stuff, and every once in a while we just get like a weird sort of static band that just flickers across, and I don't know what causes that on my camera, so I'm trying to figure it out. Because it's a very commonly used camera for this, and I know it's supposed to work right, and I don't feel like spending a day troubleshooting it, but I might have to at some point. That already seems like it's better. Sometimes I wonder if it's just it stops having that issue if I unplug it and plug it back in for a while. I'm trying to figure that out. So if you guys notice it doing anything staticky or weird, let me know. Figured I gotta at least suggest that she's kind of in the water here. Just throw a little blue back here, and then I'm going to get into a little more shading and detail and adding some white highlights to her scales, but she's going to be pretty quick to finish up. And then hopefully I'll be able to also work on the ink drawing for my Mermaid Cat that I'm designing. I don't know, there's a meerkat, so I don't know if I want to call it a Mermaid Cat. But obviously can't call it a catfish, because that would be very confusing. But since I have fewer things to give me breaks to go out and do, I guess I get a lot more work done, and I'm getting a lot done on Twitch streams. A lot of the streams I'm doing are just pictures like this that I want to do for work. A lot of these get mailed to my Patreon subscribers every month. There's a $30 subscription level that includes pretty much everything from the $5 level, so all the digital stuff and perks from that level, and then you also get creature painting every month, like the original painting, and they're usually 7x9 or 8x10. This is an 8x10, and it's of one of the creatures that'll end up in my books. So it's quite a bit cheaper than I sell them for kind of separately. Normally this would be at least a $40 or $50 painting, but I do that for my subscribers, and it's a way for me to count on basically selling 6 or 7 of these a month and help pay my bills. So it's kind of a win for me and a win for the fans who want originals. And then if you want bigger originals, I also have different subscription levels where you get larger originals every 3 or 4 months, things like that. So you get 4 larger ones a year, and there's even ones that alternate smaller and larger paintings, which is kind of fun. So they're going to good homes and people who really enjoy my work, and that makes me happy. And I don't have to spend a lot of time trying to sell a lot of mine, because at least a lot of the small ones are already sold before I paint them, which is pretty awesome. It's definitely worth it to me to sell them at a lower rate if I can know that I've got a whole bunch of them kind of pre-sold. There we go. That looks pretty good. Just a little more blue up here. I'm going to say that's enough of a background. I just didn't want her to be on white because she is a mermaid and she would be in the water. Okay, so I think I'm done with the big brush. Now I'm going to go to smaller brush, and I'm going to get kind of some of the darker green I was using on scales and things, and just kind of create some patterning. Just to suggest scales, and I usually get some blue in here too. There we go. It's very easy to suggest some of the texture of scales. I tend to have a direction than I do for the brush, like it's going this way, kind of following the shape of the curve of her tail, because her tail is round. I wouldn't then change and go this way because it would look weird. So I keep a lot of that in mind. I was talking yesterday about how I follow the shapes of the hair with my brush and things like that to get the textures of strands of hair. There we go. Bring just a little more purple in here. And I don't know that her tail needs too much more shading. In a lot of places I get some patterns and textures I really like. So it's not going to need a lot. Okay. The neat thing about watercolors, you can paint in a color pretty dark and then just add water and blend it in, just to get kind of these cool gradients that I have going on her tail and stuff like that. Adding a little more purple up here. I don't want to overdo it, but I really want to be sure that it doesn't look just too monochrome. If you find you have too much water or paint, like there, you can actually just take a clean paper towel and tap it, and it will lift up anything if you accidentally get extra water. That happens less and less the more that you paint, but occasionally it still happens for me if I'm using a color I maybe don't use as much, or a brush I don't use as much. Okay, now I just want to pick up a little more purple, and I'm just going to work just a little more on her hair with some violet and some ultramarine blue, just to add in a little more texture in places. Her hair's pretty good already, just from the gradient that I painted yesterday with these colors, but I'm just kind of following the shapes of the hair and adding a little more detail. So the neat thing is these pieces not only then get to appear in my field guides in color, but the black and white version is used in my coloring books and things like that, so I get a lot out of it. So, and I still get to sell prints, so this way the original is pre-sold, goes to a good home. I think it's a really good system, because normally as an artist you have to kind of just see what sells for originals, and that can be really iffy for your income. So having kind of a subscription version where you're getting much cheaper originals, but I can count on those sales and then not have to deal with either galleries or listing every single thing I do on my website. I still sell some originals on there. I just also do these smaller ones, because I usually have anywhere from 100 to 300 pages in my field guides, so we can use a lot of pictures. Okay, I think she looks pretty good. And then I'm going to return to the white ink I was using yesterday. I'll show it again. The kind I'm using right now, it varies depending on what's available, but I try to use waterproof white ink. It's usually acrylic based. This is a kind used by Japanese comic book artists, and it was actually something I was looking for a while that suddenly Amazon had, and it was cheaper than the other white ink I used, so decided to get it for at least the next probably 100 paintings that I do. It lasts a while. And then I just use a small brush. And I'm just looking for where I need to put in highlights. I don't feel like I have to paint each pearl white, because pearls are kind of reflective of the environment they're in too. So some of them aren't going to be bright white. I'm going to try to look for just places where I need to pop out details. The cool thing about white ink again is that while it's wet, it's something you can blend in like this, and then once it dries, can't blend it with the paint anymore, so you have to kind of be aware of where things need to be blended and doing them while it's still wet if you need to blend it all. Okay. I don't know why I drew so many dang pearls on her, because I thought it looked really cool. And I'm excited because There's a few shows I watch that aren't really included free with the streaming services that we pay for. So if I really want to see them before waiting up to a year or two for a streaming service to maybe pick them up, I will usually just buy the season on Amazon because if you're buying standard def, it's maybe $20 for owning it. So I've been watching the new Nancy Drew series, and I thought that it had finished the season because it kind of resolved the whole mystery, but Amazon just sent me an email notifying me that there's a new episode. And there is also a new episode of The Challenge, which is the one reality TV show that I have as a kind of guilty pleasure that I watch. I guess that's not true because I watch some cooking reality shows sometimes, like Top Chef, but for like the really dramatic reality shows, I think the only one that I never miss a season of is The Challenge, uh, which is a show that MTV does. And it started out way back 35 seasons ago with the idea of pitting people from the very first reality TV shows against each other. So people from, at that point, it was MTV's Road Rules and The Real World in a competition that would be both physical and mental. And then over the many years, it has grown and grown and grown. So the current season has people from American Ninja Warrior on it, and just all kinds of shows. And they make them do things that are both physically very difficult, but also mentally challenging. And I like the idea that you have to, in order to win the show, you have to be able to work well with others, stay calm under pressure, solve puzzles, be mentally and physically fit. Like, I kind of like that they made sure that you couldn't just be a mean person who's really fast or really strong and win. You really have to be good at everything. And I always joke that if I did not have this job, my dream job would be designing the bizarre challenges they give them on there. And sometimes it'll be something that seems simple, but they'll be doing it after 48 hours with no sleep, hanging upside down in a wind tunnel or something just weird like that. And I kind of enjoy it. Parts of it are overly dramatized for sure, but I think I like it because it rewards the best qualities in people, and the people who are kind of horrible and never do well long run. And I kind of enjoy that. I also think it's silly though that people will like sign up for that show and they don't know how to swim. Like, if you've watched any of the 30 some odd seasons, somewhere in there you're going to have to deal with heights, you're going to have to deal with swimming. So I don't know why you'd sign up for any of those types of shows. I also like The Amazing Race. And there are actually contestants from The Amazing Race on this season of The Challenge, which I'm kind of excited about. Curious if they're going to be better at it because they're used to thinking under pressure. But I mostly like The Amazing Race because you get to see things in different places all over the world and cultures. And I don't think I'd ever want to be on it though, because you don't really get to, you're going through stuff so fast. I don't know if they ever get to really experience the stuff. I mean, they get to win money, but I don't know if I want to travel and be that jet lagged all the time to not actually ever really do more than like a flash tour of a country and then 3 days later be in another one. And they had to suspend filming on that. I guess they had a season out there filming and they had to suspend it for obvious reasons right now. So what I'm doing is kind of picking out just some white areas kind of in her hair here, just some highlights to just make parts of it pop out. I don't feel like you need to do it to the whole thing because then it just ends up looking really too busy if you highlight every single scale and every single hair and things like that. So I'm just picking out specific elements that I want to pop out and have more dimension. Choose these kind of wacky scales that I did. And this is probably one of my favorite mermaids I've ever drawn. I just really like her her face. I think she's really pretty. And I thought I would show this on the channel because I've done a ton on my Twitch channel with weird creatures and dragons and things like that, and I thought it would be kind of cool to show like a pretty humanoid character. I'll have to do a fairy in here at some point too because I paint a lot of them. I also think it's funny that everybody remembers me as someone who paints dragons, but I paint plenty of creatures that aren't dragon or are only part dragon. So I'm just adding some patterns of scales and things. I don't feel like, again, that you need to do a ton of them, but if you just do little patterns, and I just kind of do random tapping with my brush to create them, it gives the illusion of scales and of it just being kind of wet. And I think these pearls I do kind of need to punch out a little bit here with some white. It's funny, I was trying to figure out what time of day was best to stream at because sometimes I'll get 7 or 8 people, and sometimes I'll get 1 or 2 people. So I try to vary it up a little bit. Also tend to get people popping in and out of the stream, which is fun. I think by varying what time of day I do it as well, I can be a little more accessible to people who are not in the Arizona time zone. That's one thing I actually love about living here is that we do not change our clocks ever. They don't do any time zone nonsense, any daylight savings, none of that. We just stay one setting all year. And really, it's kind of silly we still do that in so many other places because now we do so much stuff online that we're already always up at different times. Originally daylight savings time was for saving daylight. That's why it's called that. So that farmers and people who need to be outside, they were outside during, I guess, the right business hours, and it lined some things up. But now it's just silly because things are so much more global anyway, that I don't know that it serves a purpose having the time change anymore, but I don't know that people know how to kind of undo it because it's so programmed into computers and phones and people are used to it. So I grew up on the East Coast, so we did have the spring ahead fallback time change, but I am very glad not to anymore. Yeah, I saw we hit 60 followers on Twitch this week, which is awesome. Not that I care really how many I have, as long as people are getting notified when they want to that I am streaming. There we go. So that whole upper part of her tail is pretty highlighted now. And I just have to repeat the process down here. There we go. And I try to do the most details in the face, around the face, and areas like that. So I don't feel like her tail needs to be as detailed because, well, firstly, there's some detail in the ink. So I don't need as much, and then it's not really the focal point of the drawing. I'm hoping we get a lot of people streaming past videos too. I know people have been going and watching some of them afterwards and enjoying seeing the creative process. I had a lot of fun. This is probably my favorite mermaid for just the fins. I really liked this weird spotty patterning I did in her fins. I thought that was really neat. I try to look at a lot of real sea life and real fish in my aquatic creature designs, because I think using elements and patterns from real sea life or ocean life or deep sea life, if you're doing some really strange stuff, it leads like more realism to a piece, as well, both in color and design. I've done mermaids that are based on very specific fish, like clownfish or betta fish. I've done the ones that are part squid. I've done part lobster. But it's really fun to do a more traditional mermaid like this sometimes. Okay, so I think she looks pretty good. I'm just looking for anywhere that I feel like her hair might need some more highlights or things like that. Now, see, my paper is not sitting completely flat right now, but it will flatten back out. After it's dry, I'll just set it at the back of my pad of watercolor paper, and it'll flatten back out before I scan it and mail it to anybody. Now, I was trying to figure out if I had enough mermaids to do a coloring book of just mermaids, but I don't think I do. I've probably done 10 or 15 of them over the years, but not all of them I have ink drawings of. A lot of them were just watercolor directly, which is kind of too bad. There we go. I think that adds enough kind of texture to her hair and things like that. I think she looks pretty good. Now, the only thing I'm noticing is that after I added the blue background, some parts of her tail are a little too close in color to it. I'm particularly like right here. So I'm just going to grab a little more green and make sure that this part of her tail kind of stands out a little bit more compared to the water behind it. And then she will be done. That took a little over a half hour to kind of finish her up. So I think I spent probably at least a half hour doing the painting on her yesterday. Because I had so much detail in the ink drawing, it really wasn't necessary to do as much with the paint. And that just varies for me depending on the project. But I think each artist can be kind of choosy about, do they want a lot of detail in ink? Do they want a simple ink drawing? How much is in watercolor? Are they adding watercolor? If I'm not adding watercolor, or it's going to be for a coloring book, I definitely will make sure that the ink drawing looks good on its own. Okay, so I'm going to set her aside to dry. And I thought I'd spend just a couple minutes showing a little bit of my design process. So I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I'm going to be doing a couple of coloring books that are mini pocket-sized coloring books. And I have a lot of art that we're using from the other coloring books I've done that's just being reproduced in those. But I wanted to have a few new pieces. And since the theme for one of them is cats, I thought it would be really fun to do visually a mercat or a catfish. But the problem is there's also meerkats and catfish already, so that's confusing. So I don't really know what we're going to call this, but it's going to be an aquatic fish-like creature. And since you have things like beavers that have fur and they swim, I think it's fine for this to be a semi-furry critter. So I sketched it out really roughly. It's going to have paws, and then it's going to have a tail. So what I'm going to do now is just work a bit on creating a finished design in ink. And I use Sharpie pens, which are pretty affordable, mainly because I go through a lot of them. I might do anywhere between 10 and 20, 25 in really busy months drawings like this per month. So, is anyone doing music tonight? I'm not 100% sure. Today is Thursday. We had a couple people doing music last night. I know there's a lot going on Saturday. I will check for you real quick if anything is popping up on my calendar. I know Ricky was doing kind of a an ambient sort of stream last night, and then Mojito did something after him. So I'm not sure if there's anything tonight. Sometimes they do Friday nights. I used to know for sure when it was all live events, but now that it's all streaming, I never know when people are doing things, events, and it says there's new events too. So tomorrow they're gonna do Ricky. I think is it Ricky or Cece? Tomorrow they're doing. Oh, they're both DJing, and they're doing Babes of the '80s, which I'm pretty excited for. I was trying to see if there was anything tonight. Oh, I think Plastic Disease is doing her like drip stream from it says 9 to 11, which is kind of her dark techno stream. So she'll be on. And then tomorrow we have Spectrum with Babes of the '80s, and Saturday Mojito's DJing, and then much later, kind of, I think she overlaps him just a little bit. Plastic Disease is also DJing, so it looks like there's something every night, at least a little bit. So yeah, tonight, Plastic Disease will be on, according to Facebook event, from 9 to 11 Arizona time, if that helps. And you can follow a lot of them on Facebook and get, a lot of them put up invites, like actual events for even just the digital streams. So you'll get notified when they're going to be streaming. I do invites and events for my streams if they're more formal. If I'm planning something I really want people to interact with and that's voted on by my subscribers and stuff like that. But in the case of things like this, where I'm just doing kind of my daily work or parts of it, I just hop on when I can and stream. So I want the Mercat to have not just half kitten, half cat, like an even split. So I'm gonna do some cool kind of fin like things above the eyes. And inking is something I feel like I've gotten much better at. Even I've been doing it, gosh, for 20-ish years I've been inking, but I do feel like it's something that I am a lot better at now even than I was 2 years ago, just because I do so much more of it. I do all the coloring pages for Patreon every month and stuff for coloring books and projects like this. So I think the more you do it, the more comfortable you get and the more at ease and kind of developing a style. So yeah, I think it's cool to have some sort of patterning on the face of this cat, kind of like fish do. And cats, of course, have patterning too, but in this case, I'm going to go with something I feel like will be a little more fish. Like I'm kind of liking this weirdo cat creature that I'm creating, so that makes me happy. It looks kind of happy. Kind of like a kitten. And I sketched this out pretty fast. I looked at a couple of photos of my own cats and other cats just for the face, but I've done so many cats, especially the last month or so. I've been doing a lot of clockwork pet portraits, so um, it makes it pretty fast for me to rough out a sketch, and then it's just a question of coming in here and working on all the details. And I like doing these kind of interesting fin things where I basically just draw little spikes like this, and then I do curve shapes connecting them, and then it looks like a fin. And I like kind of including those in other parts of the creature than just the tail, so that when I'm painting it, it'll be more interesting. We'll get a lot of different color and hopefully it'll be cool. And I feel like I'm having a debate. I think it should have some sort of webbed paws, the way that certain species of dogs or certain breeds of dogs do. I used to have a Labrador Retriever, and she had webbed paws, webbing between her toes, because it is important for the swimming species. So I'm going to see if I can design something that shows that a little more in here versus it just having kind of normal cat paws. There we go. I try to consider things like, hey, this creature would have to swim, so I'm not just sticking top half of a cat on bottom half fish. I want to consider, well, if it's going to swim, should it have webbed paws? Should it have some fins and things like that? And I think it creates a more unified design. I mean, that's just my personal preference, because I go a little more for, I think, realism, even if it's a little cartoony in what I'm doing. It's pretty cute. Just want to check our sharpness here a little bit. Maybe the brightness. Trying to make it look a little more visible. Okay, so I'm pondering if it should have some sort of like fin up here in the ear as well, if this is going to be too weird, but I guess we'll find out since I'm already doing it. There we go. That's kind of neat. And this doesn't have to be too detailed a piece, because again, this is for like the pocket size coloring books. So it's going to be reduced down a bit in size from what I have here. But I still feel like I want it to have some detail. So one of the things about cats is they always kind of have their back legs sort of, they're sitting like their haunch here. So I'm actually using that, but it's going to be part of the tail. And I know quite a bit about cat anatomy because I have 6 cats, and I've painted a lot of cats and tigers and things like that. And kind of the more study you do of the real creatures, the more easy it is to come up with strange hybrids and things like that. I like indicating scales. It's pretty easy. You just make these little curved C shapes. And I might even indicate a few scales on the arms here. I feel like I just don't want it to be too much of a split of like this part's furry and this part's not. So I'm kind of trying to work with that a little bit. Now I'm working a bit on the tail here to just come up with a cool design. And this will also have a lot of patterning. I think I'm getting spoiled. We have so many people who are DJing or streaming art or whatever. And you know, I did used to go out occasionally, but I'm always busy working. So a lot of times I couldn't stay out late, or I couldn't go out to something because I had just too much to do, or my schedule and my boyfriend's schedule, we just couldn't make it work. So I think we're kind of being spoiled now because there is so much good stuff being streamed. And it makes me really proud of my community. They've all the DJs, a lot of the steampunk societies, things like that, they've all kind of stepped up here in Arizona and made sure that people are being positive and are being entertained. I think that's so important. So I'm trying to do a little bit myself, do my part, and add to it. There we go. This thing is so freaking cute. Sometimes I don't intend for them to be this cute, but it just happens. And I think I'm going to have this pretty much designed and ready for color, and have finished that whole other mermaid painting in like the hour that I'll have been on here, which is pretty cool. And then I'll try to do a longer stream painting. I have a couple different felines to paint. So now I'm using a thicker, this is not a Sharpie, but I could use a Sharpie. It's just a permanent marker. And for things for coloring books especially, I like to kind of thicken the outer edge a bit, give a difference in line weight. And I can always fix some of the stuff I've done if I don't like it from the early design, because I'm making lines thicker, so I can cover mistakes a little and stuff like that. And then I'll go back in it with my smaller pen and tweak some of these details and things. I'm just working a bit to make sure this is a very obvious cat creature, which I think it is. And I haven't put the whiskers in yet, which we definitely need to do. It's going to be with our smaller pen in a minute. So it's funny because probably even a year ago something like this would have taken me an hour just to ink this, and I feel like I've gotten so much faster from just doing it all the time. It gives you more confidence, and you just get more flow to your lines, and the ability to just knock things out a lot quicker, which is good because I always have so much stuff to do. And I'll be putting up previews and pre-orders for the little coloring books and the bigger coloring books and a lot of that stuff over the weekend. So I'm trying to get a lot of the survey stuff and the pre-order stuff prepped today and tomorrow. This thing is so cute. And I'm gonna bring some of that thicker line in here as well, just because I really want the head to stand out, but I'm not gonna make it solid because I don't want it to look like a solid line cutting off the head from the body or something weird like that. That would be bad. So bring a couple thicker lines in here, but I don't want to do it too much. It's as simple as that to create something. I know it looks easy because I've done a lot of these. It does take practice, but an hour ago this creature did not exist, and now it does. And I've done sort of a mercat before because I've done a merlion, which is, remember the symbol of, I want to say Hong Kong. I might be wrong about what that is. It's in my book, and I researched it for that, and it's been a little bit, but where they're half lion, half fish. So this is just sort of a similar play on that sort of thing. And I'm just going to work on adding some fun little whiskers. And cats have little whiskers up here as well, so I try to include those in a lot of my pieces. So I'm just gonna finish up a little more of the details here, and this will be ready for things like coloring books, and well, I'll make a copy of it, and that way it can go in coloring books, and I can do a color version on one of my future streams. And I have another cat that I drew out yesterday, I think. Time goes weird when you're at home all the time, but yeah, that is called the Sourpuss, which is a very cranky looking cat. So it's probably why I wanted to do one that a little happier here. I'm just changing up pens. That one was getting kind of a little drier, and the lines don't come out as nice. So if I see areas that have kind of lost enough detail, or I think they need a more refined shape or more texture, I will go in there and fix those. And I'm still bolding lines more, but I'm doing them a little less bold than the full permanent marker that I used on the outside. I think this guy's pretty cute. There we go. He needed a little more fur showing on the face. Oh, and you know what I did do is I outlined kind of this on that side. I should match it. There we go. And then I should show a little more of the inside of the ear here. Try to be consistent, but it is definitely more of an art than a science for weird critters like this. A little shading under the chin. Yeah, I like to pull the fins down into sort of more of a point like that. And it's useful to do that after you've done the boulder Sharpie because it can't go into as fine a point. So if you do it and then go over it, it would get pretty much destroyed. And I'm not doing too much shading on this because it is a coloring book page and I want to leave the colors obviously up to the people who are going to color it. So I don't feel like it needs like a ton. There we go. Make sure I want to be really happy with the fins here. I'm adding a little bit of pattern to them and things like that, because a lot of cats, like tabby cats, stuff like that, they do have assorted patterns. So I'm kind of trying to mix fish patterns and cat patterns. Hello. We got people popping in and out of the chat a lot today. But everybody is having a good Thursday. I kept thinking today is Wednesday. I think I'm having weirder issues keeping track of what day it is at home. I for sure weird noise in the background. That's the garbage truck because we still get garbage pickups, which is good. And I did put our trash out this morning. Running a little late. And thank you for subscribing. Yay. Yeah, I do have affiliate status, so you can subscribe with Twitch Prime, or just subscribe if you're not a Prime member. If you want to get rid of ads or have special badges or emoticons. Then, if you want to, you can also have the option of subscribing to Patreon, where folk get to vote on what sort of weird things I'm going to create. Which is where the whole sourpuss concept came from. I'll have to show that picture in a minute. I think we will think about painting this guy tomorrow along with the sourpuss, Wish I could just paint all day today. Yay! You got to use the baby dragon emoticon I put in there. I was trying to pick something cute. Look at that cute creature. Okay, so the only thing we're stuck on is what the heck do we name it? Because we can't call it a catfish and we can't call it a mercat because it's too close. I don't think. Maybe I can just call it a mercat. It's too close to meerkat. I could maybe call it more of like a specific breed of cat in the name, like a Murtabby, but I think that's kind of weird sounding. Because the lion ones are called merlions, so technically this would be a mercat. I just think it sounds so close to meerkat, I'm a little worried about that. There we go. One happy kitty. And I think I happen to know that because of the dimensions of the mini coloring books this is going to go in, it's going to be a kind of a tall piece, so I think I might, debating if I want to have like a little bit of a background here and some very simple sort of swirls and fishies, because you can never have too many fishies if you're doing water creatures. Just to show that it's kind of an underwater critter, and I think it's going to be sitting on a rock, so I'll show a little bit of that. And then we'll just show just a couple different fish back here. Just penciling it real quick. I know it looks really light, but once I come in here, it'll make more sense. Fishies. I don't have to do a lot of detail because these fish are pretty small or pretty far away, so I'm just showing the suggestion of fish. But then because it would look weird to just have the fish sort of, I think it looks like they're floating there or something, I like to put in these sort of swirly lines and bubbles. I know there's not really bubbles so much in real life if you're underwater, unless you have like an air pump or something. And there goes the trash pickup again. Yay, noise. Now I'm kind of wishing I had like an entire bigger piece so I could do like a coral reef or something with the cat, or show a city of theirs or something fun like that. But for now, this will be good enough. I'm just working a little bit on my fishies back here. And I don't mind if they're a little scribbly because again, they're kind of a background element. Just trying to create enough of a fish shape. One thing I love about ink is it seems so permanent, but you can totally go in here and tweak and add a few things so your fish shapes look correct. There we go. And I kind of like my fish to look a little, at least for the background ones. If it's not like the main focus of the piece, I try to give them a little bit of like a derpy little personality here. I think for the coloring book that'll be pretty fun. There we go. So now Mr. Mercat has fish. starfish and some bubbles, give it a little more of a setting. I'd love to do like coral and seaweed, but I don't think there's enough space, especially if it's going to kind of a smaller coloring book. But what I could do, and one of the reasons I know how to do a lot of these sort of shapes and underwater things and stuff like that is just because I've done a ton of underwater dragons and stuff that are sitting on coral reefs covered in seashells and starfish and stuff like that, so it makes it a little easier to kind of just throw them together later. The idea of just showing some starfish. Now starfish have a bit of a rough texture to them, if you've ever seen them. So one of the ways to show that in ink is with what's called pointillism, where you're just putting dots down. So I put the pen usually kind of straight up and just tap it in a line, and I keep the rest of my hand planted pretty firmly just to kind of create those little shaded areas. And there's so many different ways you can create textures in ink. I feel like I'm always learning new ones. It's a really fun experience. I think we're gonna call this guy Pretty Done. He's kind of he might be a mer kitten because he's a kitfish. Nah, mer kitten sounds better because he's such a cute, chubby little fishy cat. So tomorrow I will show that and find the other guy here. Tomorrow we'll have a cat painting day and we'll just paint both of these guys. The adorable chubby mer kitten and the less chubby, really pissed off sourpuss. You do not want to mess with this guy. He's just very sour. So I'm going to work on both of those tomorrow, but I think we're going to hold it to just about an hour today. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I will show again, this is the mermaid painting all done. And hopefully when I stream tomorrow, I will have more info about the pre-order for the coloring book. If you missed the Kickstarter that wrapped up this morning and you do want to get one or get any of the Clockwork subscriber or Clockwork creator sets or Patreon subscriptions, all that, I'll put more info up tomorrow. But okay, so we finished the mermaid and we have these two guys here ready for paint. And I will be back tomorrow. I hope you are all hanging in there and washing your hands and staying safe and not too bored. And I may see some of you guys in the DJ streams tonight because I usually hang out in those for our local Tucson DJs. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. You can always check my Twitch page to rewatch streams. You can follow me to get notified of more stuff. And you'll be able to see my website, which is raredragons.com, and all that stuff on my Twitch page if you are looking to find me on a specific type of social media or anything like that. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be safe. And I will see you guys tomorrow.